Right.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce you, Gina, too briefly because I could go on and on about you, and then we'll do your talk. We'll launch into the amazing stuff that you are going to bring to us, and then we'll spend the last part of the talk with questions and answers from this excellent and robust group of students here. So, with that. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time out of your day to engage with this very incredible artist who is also taking time out of their very busy day to bring you some incredible inspiration. Professor Gina Osterloh is an artist and an associate professor of art now at Ohio State University. And in 2024, she was awarded the Guggenheim Fellowship, which is amazing. It's awarded by the John Simon Guggenheim Memorial Foundation, and it's given annually to the best artists in is it the country, right? Is it international, Gina? I can't remember.
It is mostly United States and I believe also Canada.
In Canada. I just know that I
But
write letters for it, like,
yeah,
and it's so fun when I get to see people who I care about win, and it's so fun for me to look at the list and learn about people who I don't know about. And so I was introduced to your work through that Guggenheim recognition. And it was just so fabulous to get to meet you in person when we connected at the Headlands
that was amazing.
residency. So photography is the foundation of Professor Osloh's work. Um, However, her practice is interdisciplinary and it spans photography, video, performance, and sculptural work and includes text as well. Her work explores representation, visibility, and perception through carefully constructed photographic scenes that examine how we see and understand difference among sameness, often incorporating recurring elements such as masks, the grid, and the shape of a room. In her teaching, she supports a wide range of student interests across photography, performance, and visual culture, encouraging both creative exploration and clearly critical thinking. So, with that very short
Um,
intro, again, I could go on for the whole hour. I'm going to hand it over to you, Professor Ostlow, or Gina, as it
yeah.
were.
Well, thank you for having me, Professor Walgren, Judy. And I'm just thrilled to be here. I have structured the talk so that I will speak for about 30 minutes and then we'll have question and answers after. But if at any time during the middle of my talking, you're like, wait, just hold on, can you repeat that? Or can you tell me how you made that? Please do interrupt. So I'll be sharing photographs and time allowing 2 videos. Okay, here we
Thanks.
go.
Exciting. If you have a
Yeah.
question and you don't want to say it out loud, you can put it in the chat, or I think there's a Q&A. I'll get it regardless. So just wanted to offer that as well. Thank you.
Oh, great. And I can't see everyone right now, but if when we have the discussion, I'll stop sharing so we can see each other. All right. So one of my first prompts or kind of parameters I wanted to lay bare is the space of photo tableau. Photo tableau meaning a space in photography that you construct, or rather a constructed space that you will then make a photograph of. And it exists, this space only exists for the camera and for the end result of being a photograph. I first found Photo Tableau as the space to create my own contexts, my own my own space. And this was the very first studio set construction that I made for the camera. It was when I was at UC Irvine my first year. And I just wanted to explain too that like I'm speaking right now with you via Zoom and I'm going to talk about my work um, in sometimes very precise ways. But when I was making this work in graduate school, I could not talk about my work the way I am now. Um, I took 8 years off between undergrad and my studies at UC Irvine. That was just by chance. I had tried to get into graduate school before and didn't get in. I tried again and again. And when I finally applied to UC Irvine, it just felt like it was the right time. It took me a long time to develop my art practice outside of undergraduate studies. So, first, thank you, Judy, for having me and organizing this talk. Um, in this photograph, I was thinking about my mother's history in the Philippines. I was thinking of my body in relationship to California, Los Angeles, this incredible horizon line, the sunset, um, bamboo that I would see at San Onofre Beach where I used to surf, palm fronds that I would collect all over Los Angeles. I just stop on the side of the road and pick them up because they would just fall off trees after a big windstorm, the Santa Ana winds. And when I made this photograph, I was asking a question that has really stuck with me today. And the question was, how can I refuse the camera's gaze? It was in response to actually another question that in high school was often yelled at me, sometimes asked quietly, and it was, "Hey, you, what are you?" And sometimes the question was actually a two-part question. It was, "Hey, you, what are you? Are you white or black?" And I grew up in Ohio. I am multiracial Asian American, Filipino American. My mother is from the Visayas region, from Cebu, um, and my father was fifth generation German American, came from a German American farming family in Ohio. Um, I was also thinking about histories of colonialism that were intertwined with the invention of the camera, and my mother's own subjectivities being part of both Spanish American and Japanese colonialism in the Philippines. So this photograph, and I'm going to talk about this one more extensively, and then I'll go more quickly through the slides, was really important in my development as an artist because one evening, probably later at night, I had this printed in my studio at UC Irvine. And one night I was walking by, I noticed something very strange in this photograph. And it was the shape of the hair, the shape of my body, the shape of my hair turned away from the camera. And to me, it was um, a type of hole or aperture. It was kind of human, but it was also kind of animal. It couldn't quite be defined. And so this shape of refusal, this shape of the blank, this hole, or this shape of, I guess you could say juxtaposition, something that holds both, let's say, human and animal qualities, or three-dimensionality and flatness, became really important in my work. My notion of the Philippines at the time, when I made this photograph, was from purely through my mother's stories. I hadn't been to the Philippines yet. And her stories of the Philippines were mixed with memories of, having just fun with her sisters and her brother and her parents. But it was also filled with very traumatic stories. When she was 4 years old, Japanese soldiers burned down my mother's house, and she lived in hiding and often on the run, living in makeshift homes and places for 4 years. And so I think a lot about the depiction of war and the entanglements between colonialism and the camera. In this photograph, I was asking, what does it look like to relinquish one's self to a greater force field, to give praise to the tropics? But I also quickly realized that this is the same gesture as the police holdup. What is the line between civilian and soldier? And so just to just dip a toe into some photo theory, um, the word representation means a lot to me in my work. And you'll see in the upcoming photographs that I really try to slow representation down, to cut it up, to punch holes in it, and to pull it apart. Representation is quite simply the overlap of the actual event or person with with culture and your own belief systems. And so in the middle here we have representation, and representation is greatly informed by photography images. So anytime we're looking at a photograph, it is both the actual person, but it's also overlapped with our belief systems of who that person may be. And that could also be informed by, am I hungry or did I have breakfast that morning? I love etymologies. The etymology of the word image includes the artificial representation of an object, likeness, statue, counterpart, or mental representation. It's really the formation of an idea or mental picture. And in mathematics, to image is a sequential process in which a pointer set is formed by mapping from another pointer set. I love this part. In Latin, the word for image is imitare, to copy or imitate. And so you saw in the previous photographs that I was also dealing with camouflage. And so I did quickly realize, though, that military camouflage is quite familiar to the viewer. It's even used in fashion. So I wanted to kind of dig deeper and address the underlying operations of camouflage, which is mimesis, which means to copy. And so what would it look like if the body attempted to copy the color of the room? Could camouflage be not just putting on camouflage pants, but could it be a visual kind of force that occupied the entire picture plane? And so here I was also, and I still am today, really infatuated by what photography does, how it collapses three-dimensional volume and physical space to 2D flatness. And it's really important that in my photographs, it's all physical, it's very material, it's made by the artist's hand. There aren't Photoshop tricks. And so for this photograph, I raised the paper floor on cardboard and I just put wood blocks underneath. I crawled very carefully to the middle of the paper room, and a friend of mine, who was an amazing video artist named David Kelly, who was at UC Irvine at the time, cut holes around my legs and my arms so I could sink down to the actual concrete floor. So you'll see here, that's why the legs become flattened and the hands disappear. I also started to become really intentional about where I placed the shape of refusal or the head of hair turned away from the camera. In this photograph, I really tried to align it more to be in the middle of the picture plane, to be in direct line with the lens. And these are all made with a 4x5 large format film camera, which is very heavy. It's very slow. We have a limited number of pictures that we can take. And for this photograph, indeed, David was throwing the confetti and clicking the shutter release to help me make this photograph. So in this next work, I was asking, what would it look like if the room was curved and didn't have right angles? There is a French social theorist named Roger Caillois. It's Caillois. And he wrote a book called The Edge of Surrealism. And it's a collection of essays. And in it, he talked about mimesis. He talked about how mimesis is, in the insect realm, is the insect's inability to hold its individual energy, and it allows the surrounding space to write its visual code onto the body. In this work, I was asking, what would it look like to mimic the void or the hole on the wall? And I also started to see the seams of the paper room to be these types of kind of like ways of like drawing. I saw them as cuts or fissures in the physical space. And just to share like a very how-to note, if you were to rotate this photograph to the left, just one turn, uh, I would be laying on the ground, which I actually am in when I took this photograph. And so I visualized the space because when I was at UC Irvine, someone had created a loft, and I would often sit on this loft and look down at the space. And I said, if I just tilted the photograph one way, then I could give the illusion that the floor is actually the wall. For this photograph, I was asking what is on the other side. This is a little bit hard to see because I know you're all on computers. In real life, this photograph is 40 by 50 inches. And if you were to look up close, there behind the red paper is me um, vocalizing. Behind a hole, you'll see lips and teeth and tongue. Um, I am really interested in how you might see this photograph, let's say in a museum from 20 feet away, from 10 feet, 5 feet to 2 inches. So from afar, you might just see a red rectangle with a dot, but upon closer inspection, the body is revealed. And I just want to read a quick quote by a musician artist based in the UK named Kobina Mercer. Um, and she wrote a lot about how abstraction is actually a cross-cultural formal strategy. So I'm sorry, Kobina Mercer edited the book, and the musician, writer, artist is Angeline Morrison. Sorry about that. So Angeline Morrison, in her chapter Autobiography of an X-Colored Surface, Monochrome and Liminality, in Kobina Mercer's book Discrepant Abstraction, writes, so if there is nothing to see, what can you find to say? Once a blank space is foregrounded, framed, and actively presented as a separate entity in its own right, then historically received notions of meaning are radically destabilized. When a picture stands before a pictorial surface, they expect some type of picture. But when confronted by a picture that does not depict, a sort of psychic panic often ensues. And you already know this through like horror film. Like, let's say if the camera is kind of hovering too long on the back of someone's head, you're like, uh-oh, this is getting kind of scary, right? So it's a similar camera trope. I made these photographs when I had a Fulbright in the Philippines after UC Irvine from 2007 to 2008. And for the first time, this one is also made in Manila. I I was still thinking about mimesis, camouflage, but for the first time, I also moved away from my own body and worked with the representational stand-in. And I started to work more kind of sculptural forms, as Professor Walker noted. So this is a paper mache figure based on the dimensions of my body. And when I came back to the United States, another question I was asking, what if the shape of blankness, the shape of refusal, was repeated throughout the entire space? I quickly was pushing more and more into flatness, again, playing with just what photography does. It flattens space, it flattens people. And so here I was drawing and tracing outlines of friends, and then placing those outlines into a scene that I had already spray painted gray dots on large rolls of paper, and then covered the walls with that paper and the cutouts. It's a similar drawing technique, and cutting out shapes of friends here. Here I was just using bleach and water in the sun to make the marks. And this was a photograph I made where I had a residency at Los Angeles Contemporary Exhibitions, which is LACE, one of it is the longest nonprofit space in Los Angeles. I'm going to play a short bit of a 16 millimeter film. I think maybe some of you may have worked with photo film, but this is with a moving film. I included a picture of the 16 millimeter film projector. And I did transfer it for video so I could share it in here in Zoom. And so this doesn't have any sound. The title of the work is Press and Outline. When showing in the gallery or museum space, you do hear the clicking and clanking of the 16 millimeter film projector. And I'm just going to read a little bit and speak over the video just for about 60 seconds to give a little background. Um, so in the first century AD, the historian, collector of artistic modalities, collector of so many things in the realm of ancient Italy and Greece, also Egypt, Pliny the Elder um, wrote that there was a man named Butadas, a potter of Sicyon at Corinth, and he had a daughter who was in love with a young man. And she, when he was going abroad, drew an outline on the wall, the shadow of his face thrown by the lamp. Her father pressed clay on this and made a relief, which he hardened by exposure to fire with the rest of his pottery. And it is said that this likeness was preserved in the shrine of the nymphs. And I first started to do a deeper dive into Pliny the Elder through a writer named Victor Stoichita, who wrote a book called A Short History of the Shadow. And in this book, Victor Stoichita includes this story by Pliny because, one, it is one of the first written accounts. It's definitely not the first depictions of tracing the shadow, but is, as far as Victor Stoichita knows, it's one of the first written accounts of someone tracing a shadow. And Stoichita is writing, noting this also, that it's a type of origin story between painting and drawing, and clearly also photography, right? Making an image of someone else permanent. And I was really struck by this story because we have so many images in our lives. Like no other generation, your generation is living in an onslaught of images. All of us are born into the eye of the camera, and we cannot undo this. Um, Images are part of your psyche, your consciousness, the way you hold and move your body. It shapes our belief systems. And I was really struck by how this move of um, the young woman who was about to lose her lover, presumably probably to go away for war, never to return, um, she was drawn to trace his silhouette by the by the loss of love, right? The specter of to in the specter of losing love forever, and that still sits with me today. You know, one of those questions, one of those larger kind of meta questions, right? Like, why are we drawn to photography? Why are we drawn to always make images? And speaking of drawing, my hand was moving, drawing, tracing. Um, Drawing is very much part of my practice and informs photography, the photography that I make. For this image, I pushed, in a way, I left the figure. I went past the figure ground where the sitter might be sitting, and I started to draw directly on the photo backdrop paper. And so for this work, I made a continuous line in my studio, one each day for about a week, and then took the picture. I consider drawing as a performance. It's very physical. So these are larger, but then I also started to make these very tiny works. So these are still made with 4x5 film, but printed very small in the darkroom. The image size is only 7x5. I'm just using a marker with black ink in it to create these shapes, these drawings. I love repetition and how repetition may shape or reshape or redefine a certain sign, symbol, or signifier. I was interested in how maybe the breast becomes an eye, becomes a belly button. When I moved to Ohio and I left California, so I grew up mostly in Ohio, and then I lived in California for 22 years. In between that time, I also went to undergrad at DePaul for 5 years in Chicago. Um, and somehow I've done this crazy loop where I didn't want to leave California. But as everyone knows, California is very expensive. Um, I was teaching as as an adjunct instructor all over Southern California for many years. And when I got this full-time professor position at Ohio State University. I accepted it. When I moved to Ohio, I didn't have a studio anymore. I had just a blank, the only blank kind of open space I had was one wall in an apartment, a very small apartment. And so I took portrait backdrop paper, pinned it up on my wall, and started to go through old sketchbooks and then translated some of the kind of drawings I had made to think about new room constructions that I wanted to create on a larger scale. I simply made those into larger drawings instead of actual spaces because I didn't have the space. So this became my first 2 years in Columbus, Ohio. Moving away from California became an important time to catalog some of the visual symbols that have driven my work: the room, hair, portals, the photographic frame itself. This idea of repetition, holding space, how does one occupy space, right? Again, as an artist, as a photographer, you have the ability to create your own context. You have the ability to create your own spaces. You have the ability to bend the grid and to create your own grid. The series Holding Zero was quite an intense work for me. I created it in 2020, and I'll start with the first image here. So I was thinking about representation, reproduction, presence and absence, and erasure. For this image, I wrapped my entire body in tape, and then I printed out a photograph of my body wrapped in tape, life size, inserted it back into the gridded room, and then put my own physical body back into that photograph and held the mummified form. So I held that photograph with my body becoming free of the anonymous replica. I really started to see these kind of rituals, gestures, cutting, blocking as not just gestures of refusal, but gestures of potential, protection, and care. You can see how like the tape body is a type of shield. And then for this image, the body disappears, and at the intersections of vertical and horizontal are eyes that I drew on paper and then just tape them to each intersection of horizontal and vertical lines. Her Demilitarized Zone is a body of work that I made for both Silver Lens Gallery in Manila, Philippines, and also the Museum of Contemporary Art in Detroit, Michigan. I'm just going to read a little bit here and then I'll go more quickly. And then I'll share a short kind of social media video that I did for this series. I'll share some quick photographs of a solo show that I had at the Columbus Museum of Art, and we'll open up for questions. Okay. The formation of Her Demilitarized Zone crystallized with a photograph created at the beginning of the COVID-19 closures. Mirror Woman addresses the physical and psychological sites of skin, torso, the face, and eyes. With each gesture of cutting reflective tape and pressing against my skin, I covered my torso and face, including orifices of the auditory, speech, and sight to conjure contradictions embedded in borders, boundaries between self and other, and potentially national borders. Congruous with the arc of photographs leading up to this work, Mirror Woman refutes portraiture's innate ability to present a legible subject. It resists preconceived notions of identity, such as race and gender, that one may project onto a body. These methods that deny readability are strategies of refusal, protection, and care. As tape becomes a surrogate for skin, Mirror Woman deflects assumptions based on vision. Created at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, which saw a rise in anti-Asian hate crime, Mirror Woman amplifies notions of skin as armor and the desire to shine bright, to connect across nation-state borders. Eyes sealed shut, the seeming inability to breathe through the mouth, nose, mouth taped, her featureless shape also evokes woman as monstrous. Mere woman activates how a viewer may determine who belongs and who is considered that painful and erroneous word alien. And so I just also wanted to note that these two, Mirror Woman and Obliterate, are my first ever high resolution digital images. It took me this long to make a digital image. But this work, Shutter Vision, is definitely still with the 4x5 film camera. To take this picture, I was asking, how can I shift photography from sighted vision to the orifice of speech and breath? And so I am holding the shutter release cable for the 4x5 camera in my mouth. And to take this picture, I literally had to bite down onto the shutter release cable to take the image. As Judy mentioned, my work is also interdisciplinary. I also work with steel. I make text works on steel and paper. And so to explain a little bit how I weld on steel, I wanted to share a video that I made for social media. The audio is by an amazing LA-based sound artist named Gabby Strong. The title of the soundtrack is Incantation for Revolt Against Brutality. And if you want to check out more about Gabby's work, her record label is called Crystalline Morphologies. All right, give me a second while I push play. And it's just about 2 minutes.
Her. Demilitarized. Zone. Pleasure. After centuries of war, they saw each other without weapon. He wept.
Videography and editing was by an artist named Dean Taylor. So yeah, my work is represented by both Silver Lens and Higher Pictures. Higher Pictures is based in New York, and Silver Lens is in New York and Manila, Philippines. Very honored to work with both galleries. Silver Lens was the first gallery to ever represent my work. So the poem, Her Demilitarized Zone. This is an open space. Pleasure. After centuries of war, they saw each other. Without weapon, he wept. You know, I think as artists, we have to ask these impossible questions of what would it look like? What would it feel like to be in a world without war? It's clearly quite an impossible question right now, but we do have to insist on this question. So this is a solid steel plate. It's very heavy. I intentionally made it the size 14 by 11 because it's a traditional darkroom size. Traditional darkroom paper size. Pressing against looking depicts long pulls, pressing into my eyes, activating the physical and conceptual pressure and pleasure of both looking and being looked at, the frenzy of vision. In our fractured world pushed to rigid, fixed extremes, I wish that her demilitarized zone may infinitely grow, but dismantle the symbols and language of war. But maybe we also see the day that her demilitarized zone dissipates and is no longer needed. May we all unleash a duration of love. And these are text works, photograms made in the darkroom. I just printed text on Pictorico, the clear film that you can bring into the darkroom, and I just laid the text on top of the darkroom paper. And so some of the words are slightly out of focus at the edges, or kind of blurry or soft, because I didn't press it down with glass. So there's a little bit of space there between the text and the silver gelatin paper to make the photogram. I consider these an ongoing body of work. It's my dream to somehow show these in like non-museum spaces. I don't know, like maybe schools, but also like places of gathering that are intercultural. Museums would be great too, but all right. So I'm going to wrap it up soon. Just wanted to share. Well, this is the cover of a book that was made in 2023 by the Columbus Museum of Art. I had my first survey exhibition. I wish you could all have been there. The museum is so beautiful. If you're ever passing through Ohio, please go to the Columbus Museum of Art, Columbus. It's in the middle of Ohio, and it's a beautiful, beautiful gallery. This is in their new wing. So the show was in two galleries. This entrance kind of gallery on the second floor. And you can see some of the tableaus that I made from graduate school. And then the show opens up into this larger space. And it included 40 photographs. I love showing these with you because these, you can see how I also sometimes color match the frames. I'm really particular about framing. They had in a separate third space, the film projector on a motion sensor. Yeah, so just wanted to flip through some more recent work. Dreams, mourning, intergenerational connection are driving my current work. And I've been working with glass technicians to blow huge glass bubbles into sculpture molds of my face that I made. So this is with yellow glass. I was thinking about yellow ribbons that were worn by supporters of the Aquino family, symbolizing hope and unity in the 80s in the Philippines. I was thinking of how that became known as the Yellow Revolution. I was also thinking about the term, the historical racist term called yellow peril, that coined and stereotyped and was a derogatory term that labeled Asian and Southeast Asian immigrants in the 1800s, early 1900s that came into California, and also the rest of the United States and Europe. And I was also thinking of yellow as a royal color as well in many Asian cultures. I was also thinking of yellow as somewhat related to gold, although gold is a very different yellow, so I have to work on that more because in the Visayas region of the Philippines, as well as in the southern region, funerary uses of death masks were used. So gold, thin, beautiful gold was placed on a loved one who had passed away, and the funerary services, the gold was covering the eyes, the nose, and the mouth to protect the body from evil spirits. So again, gestures of masking and protection and care. If you ever go to Manila, Philippines, please go to the Ayala Museum. I don't know for how much longer this collection will be on view, but they have a very extensive and informative collection of gold death masks. And also working with clear glass, thinking of the face as a lens, as a portal, the face as a type of camera. And just one note to share, we never know how our artist careers, our artist lives, our practices are going to evolve. It's a very, very slow and windy journey. That first tableau I shared with you from 2005, when I was my very first year at UC Irvine, in 2023 was on the cover of Aperture for their Being and Becoming Asian in America issue, and it was guest edited by Stephanie Tung. She's the curator at the Peabody Essex Museum in Salem, Massachusetts. So I will stop share, and I look forward to being in conversation with you.
Oh my God. Right? Like, let's just like turn our audio on. That was like, oh my God. Daniel, you got the first question. That was a quick one.
Oh, wow. Okay, pressure. And I hope this question isn't too trite, but it's something I've been thinking about a lot. Like when you first started, like how did you decide what you want to do? What made you wake up one day and say, "Hey, I'm going to build big diorama like boxes and take my picture of them"? Like I can understand that might be something you want to say, but what brought you to that form? Was it an evolution, or you just like wake up with the
Yeah.
idea one day?
Oh, Daniel, I'm so glad you asked that question. Those
Yeah.
pivots, that's so important. There were a few things going on. One, I was at UC Irvine and I was making very different work when I first arrived to UC Irvine. I was making tableaus, but they were like outside or maybe in domestic settings. Although I didn't want it to be about like domesticity. There was, and so I would get really frustrated in photo critiques. You know, someone would say, "Oh, there's an edge of a house there. It must be about domesticity." I'm like, "No, no, no, no. It's about camouflage, actually." And so I think I was one fed up with my lack of control of the visual signifiers in my work and these misreadings. And that wasn't the viewer's fault. That was my fault. Like I wasn't taking enough control of what I was putting in front of the camera, right? And so I was like, oh, it's like a painter. Like a painter doesn't just randomly, paint a certain color or place something in the upper right corner. Everything is considered. Like every single point in the picture plane is considered. And I was like, oh my goodness, I have to amp it up here. I have to like treat this picture plane like a painting. I have to take control and be intentional about every single
Mm.
point, right? The middle, the sides. And so I said, okay, what's camouflage? How can I show that the body is related to its environment? I have to like make the whole thing turquoise and make the sweater turquoise, right? Um, so that was one impetus. I think two, and this is a little bit more esoteric, and it's risking on sounding a little bit like, I don't know, um, or whatever, I'm just going to say it. When I first moved to LA from San Francisco, I would sit on my back porch and stare at the sunset. Now, how cliche is that, right? It's like I was staring at the sunset and I was just like, I just be in awe because my view in San Francisco was another person's window, like literally like 4 feet away. I was just like another person's window. And when I moved to LA, I was just like, oh, what's going on? Like I just would sit there and allow the light to like just until the sun went down, right? Sometimes I would like jump into my car and go surfing. And that was a whole nother thing, right? To be surrounded by sunset from the water to the sky, be surrounded. And so again, that impetus to be surrounded by a color field was really important to me.
Thank you. That really helps. So just to summarize, it was kind of an evolution. You were doing one thing, you reacted to it, and so on. Is kind of how you got here. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And just to keep going, it's also like one body of work informs the next, informs the next. Like it's been so helpful to watch, to be here and listen to you talk about your work, So I'm going to throw in a quick question, Catherine, and I'll be right with you. But when did you start writing about your work? Was it early on or was it later? Because clearly your writing also helps you process. It sounds like what you're saying or what you're trying to elicit and then where you're going to go.
Yeah, I was definitely journaling a lot in grad school. I think my attempts to write were still very um, clunky, but I was journaling a lot and I was reading a lot. And, um, I think that, thanks for asking that, Judy. I think about how my evolution in writing was through invitations. Like it was like every couple of months I had to reinvent the or rewrite the artist statement, and I still am just like every like it feels like it's just every other month I'm rewriting the artist statement. What's going on? Uh, but it's also because I care about it, and I want to reflect where I am in that moment. Um, the I think writing a truly, I don't know if the word truly is correct, but I didn't quite have the confidence to say that I was like writing until I was asked to write about other people's work. And that was really only in the past maybe 8 years. And when I am asked to write about someone else's work, though, I have to very carefully consider my time to really see if I can actually do it. Because when I write about someone else's work, or even when I'm on that level, and when I'm, let's say, writing like a grant application, I can't make art. Like it overtakes my brain, and so it's a very difficult task for me.
Mhm.
But it is still also very important.
Thank you. Yeah, great answer. Catherine.
Mm. Yeah, I loved Daniel's question
Me too.
of kind and Judy's follow up to that. But I'm actually curious going further back than that, that and I'm not really sure what my question is, but just like how did you evolve to doing the tableau? Because
Mhm.
before that you were doing other things. And I'm just kind of curious going kind of way back, maybe further back into your ancient history. I'll just frame it that way.
Hmm. Yeah.
Great question.
No, thank you. Um, I also still ask that question. Um, I think it has something to do with the camera and the camera's formation of a consciousness. Um, and I don't know, but I do often think about how the camera um, really started to evolve in the late 1800s and was really entangled with the development, the American colonialism in the Philippines, um,
100%.
and the ethnographic subject. And but at the same time, there were also like really important Filipino photographers, and
Mm.
so it was like both a device of capturing and labeling and classifying human subjects, but it was also a device of real interpersonal connection and love, right? So there's so many layers there. Um, but I think knowing that we are all born into the eye of the camera and we can't undo this, like images are part of our psyche, right? We cannot undo this.
Mhm.
Um, I wanted to go and I looking back, because of course, again, when I was making those first tableaus, it was just like the first room, blue room, where I'm vomiting uh, pink paper. I couldn't verbalize right through in words, but I knew I could expulse it. I could like kind of get it out through my hands and my body. Um, and yeah, that question of making my own context was really key. And thanks for that question. I really appreciate it.
All right,
Okay,
Megan.
Megan.
And then Aaliyah, then we'll do you next.
Well, I'm wondering, I feel like in this world of photography, it's very easy to get pulled into the commercial uses of photography, especially over the years as you're an artist. And once you go down that path, it can be very difficult to separate yourself as an artist from yourself as a commercial provider of content. How do you navigate that? Like, do you have
Yeah.
rules for yourself about what you will and will not produce, and that you really want to come at it from a place of self-conception rather than being paid to create something for someone else?
Great
Oh,
question, Megan. I really appreciate that.
thank you, Megan. Yeah. There's so many layers to how I navigate that. Um, on one side, I don't separate the two. Um, like the work I make that might exist in a gallery um, is from my own subjectivity, but I'm making it always with in mind that it will be seen by someone else and not me. So, and in many ways, it has nothing to do with me. It is a form of language that will exist and circulate in the world in different places. In the wall, in a book, on Instagram. Um, but with that said, and it's something I have to get better at. I did a. This is like sounds so dry of an answer, but I did a faculty training as a professor, as an assistant professor before I went up for tenure. And it was from the National Center of Faculty Development and Diversity. And it was a phenomenal training because the mentor was not, no one was from my own university. They're all outside. And you could schedule an appointment with one other mentor just to have a 30-minute conversation. And within the first 5 minutes, she totally knew where I was at. She said, "To for you to continue, you need to make work that is not for the public. For you to be able to survive this, for you to be able to be sustainable, right? To have a sustainable life, art practice." She said, "You need to make work that will not be for the public. You have your public work, but you need this. You need to develop your private self." And I'm still not that great at it, um, but I I know that can exist.
It's great. Great advice, by the way. Thank you for spreading that. I needed it. I caught it. Thank you. Thanks. Great question. Aaliyah.
Hi, great work. Oh my, I was like in awe the whole time.
Oh,
But
thanks.
during your talk, you mentioned that you like prefer to use very minimal editing, and I just wanted to know like what inspired that choice and how do you think that it affects like the authenticity of your work or like the emotional impact?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I, uh, it's really important for me that most of like all of everything we see is in the real and it is physical. And to me, that physicality makes it more psychological. Um, it's really important to me that the viewer, even if it might not be at an immediate register, is familiar with the materials that I'm using, right? So everyone here, you know, Aaliyah, what paper feels like. We touch paper every day. And I think the more familiar I can make it, the more strange I can make it, right? Um, I do the Photoshop that I do would be like removing dust and color correcting. Those are the most mostly like removing a scratch on the film. Um, I'm trying to use more high resolution digital now and less film. Um, so it's mostly like color correcting, maybe correcting some lens distortion. Uh, yeah, yeah. That's. Thank you for asking that.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Dag, did you have a question still?
Yes, I do. By the way, awesome images, and thanks for sharing your presentation with us. My main question was that as an artist, what challenges do you like face, and how do you like overcome those challenges?
Ooh, good
Thanks, Dag.
question. Ah, I, well, many challenges, but I think one that I've been thinking a lot about recently, and maybe it's really present because um, uh, Judy's here and we met at the Headland Center for the Arts. And I wasn't an artist in residence when we met there, but I was an artist in residence there the year before that we met. And so the Headlands to me really symbolizes community and a time in which I was so immersed in like art making every day. I didn't have to go, you know, like I didn't have another job, which I love teaching, but it's like I could just be an artist full time And mostly though, I could hear other artists around me. We would share meals every night. Um, and so that the challenge that I'm expressing to Dag is about community, right? And that balance, um, and forging community in Ohio, but also um, yeah, really just being cognizant of that. 'Cause I think as an artist, it's also really easy to spend a lot of time alone because we also just need to get the job done a lot of times. Um, but yeah, that challenge of really defining um, and finding community is probably most prescient right now.
Great question, and thank you for such a generous answer as well.
Yeah.
Anybody else have a question?
Hi, I have a question.
Hi,
Samuel,
Sam.
I joined a bit late. I had a class. I just wanted to ask, I recently have gotten really into art and photography. And I was kind of just curious what initially got you involved in it and what are some of the challenges and hardships along the way?
Well, my dad, I don't know if I have, I packed it away. When I was in grade school, he let me use this plastic twin lens Kodak camera that he had from when he was a kid. And I did, of course, at the time I didn't realize how special that was, but I still have that camera. So that was my first use of a camera. And then I was using a lot of like kind of point and shoot cameras, disposable ones that you would get from like Walgreens or something. And I was taking pictures of rap stars in Columbus, Ohio when they would come through. Um, and I just kept going. And I think, Sam, what really kept me going with photography was that it was a medium that I could use at any time. Like I didn't have to wait to get to like the classroom and use like the paintbrush and I mean I could have brought the canvas home, right? But I could use it and make it anytime. Um, I was really busy in undergrad. Like I had a tennis and academic scholarship. I had another like part-time job, and so it's just like it was just so exhausting. But I could still take pictures at any time. That's one thing that I think probably answers both of your questions. It was both like a response to the challenge of the time being in undergrad, uh, and the fact that it was readily available. I could take pictures anytime.
Yeah, I love that you just brought up the accessibility of photography
Yeah,
versus making an oil painting, which is a whole nother endeavor. I mean,
yeah,
I keep trying to learn how to do it, but I don't have that kind of what's the word? Commitment, I guess, to
yeah.
the medium, for lack of a better
Yeah.
way to describe that. Wow. Does anybody else have another question? Okay. Okay,
Maybe.
okay, Megan.
Yes. You always go through slumps, right? Like where your brain is not giving you like the next good idea or the next project you want to work on. How do you overcome those artist slumps?
Oh, good question.
Ooh, the $1 million question. We're gonna bottle
Yeah,
that, make you a gazillion.
yeah. It is. It's tough. It's really tough because they happen all the time. And it seems like you're in a slump more than the actual art making, like amazing part. Um, but my solution, I do have a solution, is that I clock in and clock out like a job. And so I like to start early, no later than 9 a.m., ideally 8. And I clock in and clock out. And when I first start, I set a timer for 20 minutes. I have to go. Like I can't look at my phone. I can't even have a snack. I have to just keep moving, go, 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 go. And then the timer goes off. And I'm like, okay, maybe I can get some tea now, but maybe I just reset the timer. And if I do, 20 minutes, gotta keep going. Can't stop, can't sit down, can't check email right now. Keep going. And so that is something actually I also learned in that in the faculty training that I had, um, that to really prioritize the artwork. And so I emphasize the morning because If I wait until 1 p.m., that's when like work emails might get in, but work emails can wait till 1 p.m. Work emails could even wait until 4 p.m., right? And so there's no reason for me to sit down at my desk and check work emails at 7 a.m., even though I fall off and I start to do that. But especially in that slump, it gets militant, it gets hardcore. Like I'm just like, and clock in, clock out, set that timer, prioritize it. Do not check email at 7 a.m. Do the studio first. And it's like you also trusting that process, right? It's like throwing mud at a wall and throwing mud at a wall, throwing mud at a wall. And then after a certain time, something's going to stick. But it's really scary because for so long, nothing sticks.
Ooh, those are words to cement in here. Catherine, so you're getting all this, right? Yeah.
It's really good to talk with everyone.
I know. I love our students. We have the best community.
Wow.
Just
Ah,
something I wanted to bring up. Your without war words and your,
yeah, yeah. Hmm.
I mean, that needs to be on sides of buildings, right? Like I could just see that like on buildings, like Ed Richet on steroids or on billboards or something like that. It just needs to be up there somehow.
Ah,
So like, let's just make that happen. I don't, in DC,
mm,
right?
across the country.
Yeah, but definitely in Washington. Like
Yeah.
we got to find a building there just to like have it. Anyway, I'm digressing. Whew. Well, I could keep going for an hour, but we cannot. We are paying you very little just for even this time. So thank you for your like generosity. And I needed it more than I can tell you. I don't know about y'all, but I needed that pretty badly. Gina, you are Professor Osterloh. You are a brilliant human and artist and all of that. I want you to also know that my MFA final project was Tracing the Shadows. So, like, what that was the title that Viet helped me with. And I just want you to know that watching that film was like monumental for me. So, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Judy. Thank you, everybody. Well, I hope